There's a few different caravan awning manufacturers in the market at the moment. Fiamma, Extend, Aussie Traveller, Dometic, Global, which I've now got. Now this is the third caravan we've owned from new. I've never really had too much of a drama with our awning, but this one we have. So we took this van on its first trip a couple of weeks ago and the weather was shit, and to be honest, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I was checking for water leaks. I didn't care what the weather was doing. And it worked out quite well, because when I finally got everything set up and I was sitting under the awning here in my chair, that's it part everyone's looking forward to when you set up for a caravan trip. That's when the water started leaking through onto my head, wetting the table, all that sort of stuff. So it got me looking into it. So from what I can see, there's two main areas water can leak in on your new caravan awning. There's your first spot up there where the stitching meets the track, I suppose. And the other spot for me was down here where the stitching meets the barrel. Okay, so to explain this better, so when they make your awning, it's basically a piece of fabric, for want of a better word, piece of fabric that runs up the end, it loops around a bit of cord, and then they stitch together so the cord can stay in there. That cord then feeds along a track that's mounted to the side of the van. And the problem is when they stitch it, obviously that uses a needle and thread, and it creates a hole where the needle goes through the fabric or whatever it's made of. So that hole then lets water through. But what it's designed to do, what it's supposed to do, is the water is supposed to hit the what do you call it, string, whatever, the twine, whatever it is that they use to stitch it with, and the fibers in it are supposed to break apart a bit. And the more that happens, the more it expands and fills inside the hole where the needle went through, essentially waterproofing and blocking the water off before it flows through into the underside where we are now. So that's a relatively easy fix. You just got to wet it a few times and essentially it should expand enough. I did have that problem with the Vacationer, our previous van, and it did fix it. I think I wet it maybe 3 times and it was enough, and it sealed it right up. The big problem I'm having is with this end, with the barrel. So from what I'm seeing online, bigger awning brands like your Dometic, they basically, the barrel is the main piece in this. So the fabric, or whatever that is, that material feeds inside a groove inside the barrel, and then they put that cord that you use at the other end inside this end through the barrel, and it basically locks that fabric that's been looped in there into one spot. So there's no stitching at that end. It's essentially waterproof because it's just its own self. With this brand, which I've never had before, the Global, they seem to, I think they stitch the cord to it. I don't know how or why, but that's the way they do it. So they stitch the cord to it, so they can still run it through like the same way, but it's actually part of the fabric of this awning. The problem with that then is that we have another run of stitching holes all the way along. So knowing what I know from the previous van, I hosed everything down. So I hosed the top end a few times and the bottom end. Now the top end stopped leaking pretty well straight away. It wasn't too long. Again, maybe 3 hoses. So look, I'm in the middle of summer at the moment, and I hose it down, wait half an hour, it's completely bone dry, it's exposed out here. It dried off, hose it again. I did that almost for a day or two, just making sure it was 100% right, and it did. It stopped pretty well straight away. This barrel end though, not so much. I'm not 100% sure why, but I'm pretty sure it's because it's stretching more at this end where the barrel is, so it's actually opening those holes up a bit more. So with a bit more research, and I contacted the Crusader manufacturer, the warranty department, and they told me to use beeswax. So I've used candle wax before in the last one. I'm assuming it's pretty much the same thing, but let me show you what it is. Rightio, you can get several different versions of this at Bunnings, and I pretty much do all my shopping for this sort of stuff at Bunnings. And here it is, beeswax. Now you can get liquid form, different sort of pastes and whatnot, but this beeswax comes in like a block. It smells like honey, makes sense, bees. So what I did was, like I said, it's in summer, so I expected it to be quite hot on that awning, and that worked really, really well. Just rub this along the stitching line, and it just fills the holes. It works quite well. Now look, it's taken a fair bit more at the barrel end, and it's not, I'm not going to say it's 100% right yet, because it's not. I hose it down constantly and I'm checking, and I am still getting the occasional little leak. And I think it's because it's wax, and when it cools down it sets into its place. But what happens if you get a lot more heat? That wax is just going to continue to drip through. I'll probably end up with wax coming through the other end if it keeps happening. I don't know, but I've given it a crack and it has worked, sort of, but it hasn't solved the problem. So looking online, there's other options that you can get, like I think they call it stitching seal or something like that on different websites, that it sort of squeezes out almost like in a tube, and I'm assuming it sets almost like silicone. I'm considering giving that a shot, but because the Crusader manufacturers have told me to use this, or the warranty people, like I said, have told me to use this, I've used it, and I'm going to see how it goes. But so far, like I said, not 100%. What I am keen to know is anyone else that's had this problem, what have you done? What's worked for you? The last awning, nowhere near this much problem. The Global, this is my first ever Global, and don't get me wrong, I like the way the Global looks. And the arms and whatnot, they seem to work a little bit smoother than I think my last one might have been an Aussie Traveller. It works a little bit smoother than that. But apart from that, I'm not really sure. Do love the colour. It's going to hide any sort of stains or mouldy stuff that sort of pops up after time. The last one was white, and that was a mongrel. Every time you got one little dot of mould or something, you're trying to scrub it off with different shit, and it wasn't great. But this, it'll hide everything. I'm pretty happy with that. But I am concerned about the water. I'm under here because I don't want to get wet, so it sort of defeats the purpose. But if anyone's got a better idea, or can send me a link of something that's going to work really well, I'm very, very happy to test it, and I might even put an update on this. Thanks for watching.